This is the Hub on Stage, and this is Cats asking some important questions.
Are you blind when you're born?
Can you see in the dark?
Do you look at a king? Would you sit on his throne? Can you say of your bite that it's worse than your bark? Are you cock of the walk?
When you're walking alone?
Because jellicles are and jellicles do.
Yeah, music from Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical Cats, just one of his many blockbusters, along with Phantom of the Opera and Evita and so many more. Cats opened in Sydney back in 1985, and the show was bread and butter for some members of the cast and crew for the next 10 years. And recently, several of them got together for a reunion, and our producer, Kim Jerick, snagged an invite. How did you manage that?
Well, I heard through the grapevine that it was happening, Michael, and I invited myself.
So you crashed?
I did. I crashed.
No invite at all. So when did you see Cats?
My mum took me in 1993. I must have been 8 years old.
Just a kitten.
That's right, just a kitten. I loved it. It just was, it made such an impression on me.
Was this your first, were you wide-eyed, a little kitten with wide eyes, first time?
I had not seen anything like it. It was my first time in a big theatre. This was 93. That was not Her Majesty's, the Princess Theatre in Melbourne. And blew my mind. And talk about setting a bar for your first time in the theatre. You've got Andrew Lloyd Webber doing the music, yep. Gillian Lynn's choreography, Trevor Nunn from the Royal Shakespeare Company as the director. It was really the dream team.
The Michael. Dream team, yeah. So?
I haven't thought much about Cats for the last 25 years, Michael, but when I heard about this reunion, I really couldn't miss it. I picked up my recording gear, I headed out there, and the first people we'll meet, Michael, are Mungo Jerry
and Rumpelteazer.
My name's Laura Hamilton. I would have been Laura Bishop at the time, and I played Rumpelteazer.
My name is Gary Ginnivan, and I was Laura's Mungo Jerry.
So we were the crime duo.
How does one prepare for a role as a cat?
Oh, with much difficulty and a lot of crawling around the floor.
Most shows these days are up in 4 weeks. But Cats, we had 8 weeks rehearsal because of the specificity of becoming an animal. I remember the first 2 weeks of rehearsal literally crawling around the floor, up on the windowsills, doing this, working out how your back worked as a cat, how your hands worked as a cat, how to become feline, to lose your humanness. And
don't worry, there were a couple of animals in there that were already animals.
Mungo Jerry
And Rumpelteazer, we're a notorious couple of cats.
as knockabout clowns and quick change comedians, tightrope walkers and acrobats.
We have an extensive...
By the time it came to Australia, it was already a worldwide phenomenon. People knew how big it was, but it's still, on paper, it didn't seem like it was going to be as successful and popular as it was. What did you make of Cats?
I think we like to transcend our humanness at times, and that's what fables are for. And Andrew Lloyd Webber had T.S. Eliot's, Opossum's Book of Cats. Each one of those stories has, underpinning each of it is some kind of human condition.
Was Cats the first, or one of the first productions to signify that growth in Australia into the musical theatre sphere? It seemed bigger than anything that had come before.
The first one of those big blockbusters.
Evita too.
Yeah, Evita was.
It was really like Andrew Lloyd Webber coming to Australia. And really when Andrew Lloyd Webber and Cameron McIntosh discovered that there was a market in Australia, after Evita, then it just really, it took off.
Yeah.
Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer have a wonderful way of working together. And some of the time you would say it was luck, and some of the time you would say it was weather. We go through the house like a hurricane, and no sober person can take his oath. Was it Mungo Jerry?
Or Rumpelteazer?
Or could you have sworn that it mightn't be both? And when you hear a diamond...
I'm Leanne White. I was the original dance captain in Australia. I was known as Leanne O'Farrell then, and met my husband during the run of Cats. We're still together 30 years on.
What was his role in Cats?
He was a booth singer and understudy to Gus, the theatre cat. Mm-hmm.
He made an impression.
Yeah. 3 kids later, so yeah.
So a lot of characters, a lot of costumes, a lot of makeup. Tell me what the production was like to hold together.
There were 20 on-stage cats when I did it, and there were 12 off-stage cats, so there were 12 understudies for those 20 roles. And I think I did about 1,000 shows originally in one run, and of the 1,000 shows we did about 20 with the full cast. So Cats was quite a dangerous show to do, dealing with the set and just the physicality of the show. There were a lot of injuries, so it was my job to make sure there was always someone to carry that train piece or, be there for that lift of that particular cat, and I had to make sure that all the understudies knew exactly what they had to do at all times. Cats in itself, the nature of the show, it took us a long time to grasp those feline movements, and once you've done it, it stays with you forever. There's something about it. At the end of that night, when you put your hands up at the end of that show, you've given your all and you've worked your butt off. Yeah, you're very fit. You get to interval, and when you have to strip your leotard off and unitard off and put it in the dryer because it's wringing wet, you're halfway through the show. You're earning your money. Yeah.
What was it like moving on from Cats? How long did you stay with it?
Look, I was on and off for about 10 years with the show. At one point I was 14 weeks pregnant when I did the role of Bombalurina.
Do you still get these songs stuck in your head?
It's funny you say that. I've done a few shows. I don't remember any of the choreography of any other show, but I still think I could probably, 30 years on, do most of the choreography in my head. Maybe the body wouldn't do it, but I know what's coming next.
And we all say,
Oh, well, I never was there ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistopheles. Oh, well, I never was there ever a cat so clever as...
My name is Dale Baker, and I did the role of Mistopheles.
And who were you at the time? What was your background?
I was a ballet dancer. I had been with the Australian Ballet and a number of companies overseas, the Royal Ballet Covent Garden, San Francisco Ballet, Zurich. And I came back here, and I'd known Gillian Lynn when she worked with the Australian Ballet. She did a ballet for the company back in the 70s. And so somebody suggested about auditioning for Cats. And I thought, oh yeah, I know her style of choreography. This could be really good.
Was it unusual for you to audition for a musical production as opposed to a ballet?
Telling you, I was petrified. Not the dancing was easy. My agent rang me up and she said, make sure you bring a song. A song? You mean you have to sing? I didn't know you had to sing in the show. And I went in and we sat down, and he asked me what song did you have, and I told him what the song was. He said, what key is it in? I said, I don't know. A couple of days later, my agent rang me, told me that they wanted me to do the part, and they thought I had a good voice and I should get it trained. So it was a real shock to me.
You weren't just moving away from ballet for this production and into musical theatre, but also singing. But on top of that, you had to learn to behave like a cat. Was that an additional level of complexity?
Oh, we had some fabulous games that we played as cats. You'd get broken up into groups of about 4, and he would give you a word, and then as a group of 4 cats, you had to express what that word was in mime. And it was absolutely hilarious. Fortunately, actually, we had a cat at home. We had an Oriental Siamese. So you could study them and start looking at all those natural things that they do, how they stretch, how they clean themselves, what they do, how they just lie around and do not a lot, a hell of the time.
Now old Deuteronomy, just before dawn, through a silence you feel you could cut with a knife, announces the cat who can now be reborn and come back to a different, jellicle life.
My name is Deborah Byrne. I played Grisabella in the original Australian production of Cats. I had no idea at the time how important this musical was. I felt very lucky that I'd got the part because I loved the song, Memory. At the time when Memory was being played on the radio, Barbra Streisand had quite a big hit. I was doing a film called Rebel. And when the film finished, I was asked to audition for Cats. And so I then studied the song. And I met with a beautiful man called David Taylor, who was the assistant director. And he told me the story very briefly about Grisabella and what this song meant to her. And it just struck such a chord with me. And I was offered the role. I was so excited because I wanted to play that character. It wasn't so much I wanted to be in Cats. I just wanted to play that character. She was a very vulnerable woman. I think, Grisabella of all the characters is very human. She has strength, she has vulnerability, she has been up high in the world and then dropped low in the world. And even before I turned, 25, I'd already experienced quite a lot of that too. I was abused as a child. I'd had huge success as a young girl. I self-medicated with alcohol, with marijuana, and eventually with heroin due to the abuse that I had as a young girl. So I understood her. I understood what it takes to be strong when you feel incredibly frail, and that you just got to keep pushing forward, and that to be loved unconditionally was something that I had not experienced. And so what she was asking for in life, to her death, because she knew she was going to die, to be asking for that unconditional love was something that I was still asking for. And so I had a lot of empathy for the character.
A street lamp dies, another night is over, another day is dawning. Daylight, I must wait for the sunrise, I must think of a new life, and I mustn't give in. When the dawn comes, tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin.
At times it was kind of a little tricky to play Grisabella because sometimes my feelings and her feelings were one and the same, and so I would get quite distressed at times. But it made me recognise probably the effects of the abuse and why I drank too much at times, or why I chose particular men to be with. Every experience can be enlightening, I think.
You stayed with the production for a very long time, so you were obviously really attached to the role. Was it also joyful for you to be in such a fun and over-the-top production about felines?
I think what it is that it became family. It became family. I'd never really had a workplace that I could go to every day, the same place, the same people, rely on people, get to know people. My world had been very transient. So I guess the Cats experience, it was a place to go every day, to be amongst people, to become friends with people, to make relationships, and to learn. You never stop learning in theatre, you shouldn't anyway. You shouldn't stop learning. And so it was something that I never had before, so it was pretty good. 2 years. My original contract was for 6 months. So, you know, I must have been enjoying something.
Yes, so many cats. RN's Kim Jurek there at the reunion of the Australian cast of Cats. And if you've got memories of seeing Cats, I'd love to hear from you. Just head to the Hub's Facebook page and look for all the Pussycats. And while you're on your computer or on your mobile device, why not subscribe to the Hub On Stage podcast?